The previous video went through getting the fin spinner made. I spun the various smaller fins around with the board, but this video will focus only on the fin spinner due to time constraints. Another reason is because changing the toe string height, length and radius all made large changes to the result. Some may wonder why I'm testing just a fin and not a board fin combo, as the board has a huge influence on the fin and vice versa. One reason is just to remove as many variables as possible and just see how the fin itself behaves. Another reason to test only a fin is that to go really fast, the board needs to get out of the water and be out of the equation, with only the fin in the water to convert the wind force into forward motion. Fast sailors say they can fly the fin where the board isn't touching the water at all. You have to be very experienced to be able to do this, and I don't think it occurs for long. To go really fast, you have to fly above the surface like an acranoplan, with just a fin in the water to generate forward thrust. This is what rocket engineer Bernard Smith proposed in 1963 when he published the book The 40-Knot Sailboat. This was brought to life in 2012 with Sail Rocket 2 and would achieve the current world speed record of 65.45 knots. At speed, only the wedge-shaped fin was in the water. I spun a NACA 9 smooth fin around at fixed currents from 2 to 10 amps at angles of attack from -2 to 20 degrees. Since there were minor variations in speed as measured on the bike computer, probably due to slight variations in height as the fin travelled around, I timed how long it took to do 10 laps to average out this effect. I started at 20-degree angle of attack and worked towards zero. However, after initially speeding up as expected, as angle of attack decreased, the speed started slowing down when the angle of attack got below 8 degrees. I initially thought I was overheating or burning out the motor as I was running it for long periods at high power. However, the motor was barely warm, so I went back and repeated some points randomly. They all agreed within 0.4 seconds over 10 laps, so it appeared the measurements were repeatable and correct. I repeated for another fin, but I was running out of time, so I only made a few measurements over the angle of attack where I was getting weird readings. I input the data into a spreadsheet, then graphed. It was clear that the maximum speed was nowhere near the tangent angle of attack, but significantly higher. Even stranger, the peak speed angle of attack seemed to be different between fins. I was pretty sure my angle of attack measurements were pretty accurate, so next day I repeated the experiment for 4 fins. I spent a lot of time initially getting the fin to travel at a constant height so I could use the speed as measured on the bike computer instead of counting laps. It's worth noting that it's almost impossible to set up the same as the previous day, and water evaporation, temperature effects are all hard to maintain, so only results done on the same day should be compared. I graphed all that data, and sure enough the peak speeds all occurred at different angles of attack for various fins. Whilst not a correct statement, I will call this angle of attack of maximum speed the zero angle of attack. For the fins printed with thick layer heights to simulate roughness, the drag appears to come large over 20 kilometers an hour or so I didn't bother testing or analysing those fins further. A bulb fin seems to flatten out the peak speeds at zero angle of attack, but make almost no difference at higher angles of attack greater than 4 degrees or so. This immediately raises a potential problem trying to determine the lift at a certain angle of attack using Fangman's idea of comparing the zero lift drag at a certain velocity with the drag required to reach the same velocity at a specific angle of attack. This is because the position of maximum speed is really the minimum drag, not the zero angle of attack drag. I could have experimentally found the lift table by measuring the current required to spin the fin at the same speed as the neutral angle for all the angles of attack, but this appeared very tedious, so I interpolated the existing data and I obtained the lift matrix that way. The current at the angle of attack of peak speed was called the zero angle of attack drag for each fin, and then I used trig to compute the lift from the current required to move the fin at the same velocity. If the zero angle of attack selected is correct, the lift curve should be symmetrical, as in the case with the standard fin, but for the bulb fin it's not symmetrical around the chosen minimum drag angle of attack. The other thing that can be easily seen from the data is the point of spin out for each fin. For any particular current, as the angle of attack increases, the velocity slows down. At the point of spin out, the velocity increases as does the power. The velocity power increased roughly 9% for the same applied current. It was very easy to pick spinouts. Whilst very clear to the ear, the recorded audio on camera is not clear for this effect. However, the power and speed would immediately increase if there was spinout. I noticed that the side view camera got good examples of fins in and out of spinout. The initial videos had the angle of attack arm in the way of the fin tip, but even on them it's clear what's happening. The tips of wings, fins and sails all produce a vortex and a lot of drag. Here's the best example I could find of what is happening. This picture is of sailing boats in fog and the vortex off their sail tip. A similar vortex is occurring in water, but you can't see it. My dodgy green line hopefully shows what I'm referring to. However, as soon as the fin tip vortex does connect or get a path to the air above, the fin spins out. The power as recorded by supply increases immediately. The time between the fin travelling normally to being in spin out is not measurable. On the GoPro Super Slow-Mo at 240 frames a second, one frame the fin is fine, and the next frame 1/4 second later, the fin tip is clearly connected to the surface and the fin is spinning out. For a conventional fin travelling at fixed angle of attack, once the tip vortex connects to the air above, the fin spins out and never recovers. You have to slow down to almost zero velocity for this air channel to the fin tip to disconnect. In these slow-mo videos at 12-degree angle of attack and supplying maximum power to the system that my power supply is capable of, the bulb and bulb fins are travelling at the same speed within measurement error of around 31 kilometers an hour. The power is only 0.7 watt different between fins, which suggests the bulb is not producing much additional drag. I can induce spin out extremely easy on the conventional fin by making some waves with my hands. The fin with the bulb, however, is extremely difficult to induce spin out. With a bulb fin, a few interesting things occur. The surface turbulence can get extremely close and even appear to touch the bulb, but it doesn't allow the tip vortex to connect to the surface. The bulb can even appear to leave the water, and it still doesn't let the tip connect to the surface when it re-enters the water. At lower angles of attack of around 12 degrees, if the fin does spin out, it recovers by itself and disconnects the fin tip from the surface within a second. In other words, a bulb fin appears to self-recover from a spin out with no change in attack angle or speed. However, at higher angles of attack of around 16 degrees, once you get a spin out, the fin won't recover. However, it does recover at a much higher speed than a conventional fin without a bulb that needs to drop speed to almost zero before it recovers. All of this again validates what Fangman is reporting from testing a real-world bulb fin that makes it more forgiving. In conclusion, it appears that spinning model fins around the pool can generate measurable results that may then be worth trying in the real world. It also simplifies taking videos of what is occurring, which may help with the experimentation of new designs. The next steps with this project is to try different size bulbs and measure vertical lift from these fins using a load sensor. Potentially I could mount this same sensor at 90 degrees to measure the lift directly instead of indirectly. The other thing I will try adding is a small section of the rear of a board to this setup to try and see if this changes results between fins or making the fins longer. Repeating the experiment with real fins, noting this zero lift issue will likely be more pronounced. Whilst I will need much more power to approach real-world speeds to induce spin-outs, there may be interesting low-speed effects. The first test showed that real-world fins can be spun at about 20 kilometers an hour with the current setup, and the motor isn't currently struggling.